One of the coolest thing about Persona is how it hide all these little myth connection right under your nose. But out of all of them, Nyx might be one that goes the deepest. In this video, I'm going to show you every hidden link and tribute behind her story, plus one new connection I recently discovered, and why I think she's one of the best bosses ever when it's come to turning real mythology into part of the game world. Okay, so in Persona 3, Nyx design included several elements that pay tribute to her mythology root. In Greco-Roman mythology, she's known as the goddess who personified the night itself. The game reflects this clearly through her connection to the night and her skill Night Queen, which deal heavy almighty damage and inflict random status effects on all enemy. However, references like mythology nod through skill, name, or design are quite common in the Persona and SMT series. What makes Nyx different though is how the game goes far beyond those simple references. Let me explain. According to the official Persona 3 club book, Nyx is described as a massive alien that reaches Earth while she's still in a dormant state in the prehistoric time. However, this didn't happen during the Dino era, but much earlier. Back when life on Earth was made up of just simple single-cell organisms like bacteria and amoebas. That said, because she was asleep, Nyx crashed into the planet upon arrival. The impact was said to be so strong that her psyche, or her soul, separated from her body. That body then drifted upward with the debris from the crash, and together they eventually form what we now know as the moon. This connection is fascinating because in ancient Greek mythology, Nyx alongside Erebus, Gaia, Tartarus, and Eros was among the very first being to exist after chaos. She's the goddess who personifies the night and is said to have brought it into being. Persona take that idea and of course give it a unique twist. Instead of Nyx creating the night through divine power, she does so in a literal physical way. Her bodies become the moon, and that moon gives rise to the night as we know it. Now, some of you might argue that even without the moon, Earth would still have a day and night cycle. And yeah, that's absolutely true. But without the moon, the night would be much darker and colder, making it harder for life as we know it to exist. Furthermore, the moon's gravitational pull also stabilizes Earth's tilt, keeping our seasons and climate relatively steady. So, in a sense, Nyx's arrival didn't just bring the moon and the night, but it helped create the condition that make our version of the night possible. Now, if that's already sound pretty cool, what comes next might surprise you even more. Because if you think about it, the story of Nyx crashing into Earth should immediately remind you of another giant asteroid from our own timeline. You know, the one that was believed to have wiped out most of the dino. And for the longest time, I actually thought that connection was intentional. I figured the writers took inspiration from that asteroid events and reimagined it in the Persona universe. But as I mentioned earlier, the crash happens way before the dino era, which kind of ruined that theory. And to make it worse, it means Earth would still have to get hit by another massive rock later in its history. But even so, something interesting came up recently. While I was revisiting this part of the story from my next project, where I'll be covering most, if not the entire timeline of the Shadow, I ended up finding a possible real-world inspiration for the Nyx crash. It's a theory known as the giant impact hypothesis. According to this theory, when scientists study the rock brought back from the moon, they noticed something kind of strange. The moon rock has way less iron than Earth, especially in the core, but at the same time, the oxygen found in both was almost identical. That tiny detail hinted that maybe the moon and Earth actually came from the same place. Because of that, scientists started to wonder what could have caused it. And that's when they came up with what's now known as the giant impact hypothesis. Basically, this theory says that around 4.5 billion years ago, back when solar system was still forming, a Mars-sized planet called Theia crashed straight into the young Earth. The impact was said to be so massive that it sent a bunch of debris flying into space, and over time, all the debris came together and formed the moon. With all that said, I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty awesome, because the writer didn't just use Nyx myth, they tie it together with an actual scientific theory to shape not just Persona 3's story, but pretty much the creation of the Persona verse. Now, this is where the moon part ends, but there is still another connection that's just as interesting that I really want to share with you next. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to the dialogue in this scene.
Nyx is the mother of shadows. In ancient times, she bestowed death upon this world. If she awakens, the world will be swallowed by darkness, and all life will perish.
As you just heard, Ryuji said that Nyx has bestowed death upon the world. At first, most people, including myself, thought this was referring to how she would be the one who bring about the end of the world. It's also possible that it could be talking about how Death, aka Ryuji, and the Shadow were originally born from her. But while those explanations make sense, the Persona 3 cupbook actually give an even stranger one. So according to the book, after Nyx's body became the moon, her psyche, now separate from her body, started drifting across the planet like a massive wave of death that wiped out pretty much everything in its path. Now, to stop this disaster from continuing, the living thing that exists at that time decided to each take in a small piece of Nyx's psyche and seal it inside themselves. And that's basically how Shadow ended up inside the collective unconscious, which resulted in it becoming a part of all living thing that came after. But here's where things get really interesting. After all that happened, those tiny single-cell organisms started evolving like crazy. However, they didn't just grow stronger or more complex. They somehow developed something completely new. And even with all our science today, it's still something we can't fully explain. That something is what we now call consciousness. Still, remember, we're talking about Nyx's psyche here, so while it gives life the gift of consciousness, it's also introduced something else, the idea of mortality through aging. Back then, all life on Earth was made up of simple single-cell organisms like bacteria or amoebas. These little guys actually cannot die naturally. They only stopped existing when something else ate them, or I don't know, maybe when they consume too much amoeba TikTok or something like that. But yeah, that's basically what Ryuji meant when he said Nyx bestowed death upon the world. And again, this actually all tied back to Nyx's original myth from Greco-Roman mythology. In the myth, she's the mother of Thanatos, the god of death. But that's not all. She's also the mother of a bunch of other death-related gods. For example, there's Hypnos, the god of sleep, who's actually Thanatos' twin brother. And honestly, I just think that's such a neat detail, because death and sleep have always been seen as two things that goes hand in hand. But it doesn't stop there. Nyx is also said to be mother of Moros, the personification of doom, and Keres, a group of female spirits associated with violence and cruel death. And honestly, it's kind of a shame that these gals don't show up in the game, because they could have been really interesting counterpart to Thanatos, who represent peaceful death. So yeah, looking at all of this, it's really shown that Nyx wasn't just made to have a few unique attacks that reference her myth. She was actually designed and written as a full-on tribute to it. And not only does she embody her role as the queen of the night and the mother of death, but the writer even used a real-world scientific theory to connect her myth directly to the creation of the game world. And that's pretty much why I say she's one of the best, if not the best bosses ever made in the entire Persona series. But as usual, since I can't prove that any of this was intentional, the choice is yours. You can either wait for the official information, or you can come explore more with me next time when lore and game meet. Or even better, you can become a channel member to get early access and member-only community update. Seriously though, thanks so much to all the members. You guys are the reason video like this can even happen.